Hi, my friends. I want to bring you another dose of efficiency, improving workflow. This time, looking at your very well used and um, often seen main tools of your main selection tool, and then your direct selection tool, which would be your V and your A keys on your keyboard. And I hope you're using those all the time, V and A, to switch between them. I'm just going to review a few of the combination keys that you will use with those to really start getting control over subgroups and items within groups, all these nested groups that can get cumbersome to deal with. And rather than double clicking your way through to drill into a group and then a subgroup within that all the way in, and you just want to grab one small little object and move it or delete it or edit it in some way. I want to show you just some of the variations and useful ways that this tool can make shortcuts for you. One of them is, let's say we're looking at a group here. This is a whole group of objects, and there's a couple groups in there. And let's say I just want to grab a group of this one little part of the symbol with the plus, and I don't want to grab anything else. Well, if I hold my control, which would be your command, and click on some part of that, I'm going to use my direct selection tool, and it'll grab just some part of that shape. If you grab on a point, it'll grab the point. If you grab on let's click outside and grab some part in between points, it'll just grab that segment of the path, and then you can move it around as you would expect. If you hold down the control key or the command key and click on that shape in the middle somewhere, it'll select that whole object, and then you can move the whole object. That's a problem if you have a path that doesn't have a fill. It won't, like this one's going to be fine, it'll grab that shape. This circle will be fine, it'll grab that shape. But if you have just a path, it will grab whatever's behind that. If it's hollow, then you obviously can't grab that shape. So by clicking the control or the command plus the alt key, a little plus cursor or symbol will show up at the bottom of your cursor, and that indicates that it's going to select the whole path and not just a segment of the path. And you'll see that here, so it's done that. If I select this, it'll switch now to the circle. If I do the same thing on another shape, it'll just switch over to that other shape. If I click on that one shape and then I click on the same shape again while holding the same command and alt keys down, it will expand the selection to the group or the parent group above that. So now I've selected the whole symbol by clicking again. I'm going to click one more time. It's going to grab the group that is above that level, and so I'm moving back out the telescope, so to speak. If I click it one more time yet again, now I've included the urgent needs headline, and this is the parent group of the whole series of nested groups. And I can move that around as needed. So rather than double clicking in and finding this group and then double clicking in and finding this one again to make a small adjustment, I can just click in here with my keyboard shortcuts, click again, and now I've gotten that whole symbol selected. Click again in there, I clicked the wrong thing there. Click again in there, expand that to the group above it, click again in there, expand to the whole parent group. Now, you saw me clicking on one of the rounding corners. If I click in a little bit further here, and I switch to my A key for the direct selection, and let's say I grab these for these four corners. If I hold the Alt key down while I click on the rounding icon, the little symbol for rounding, I'm going to get, and I'll do it over here so you can see it better, I'm going to change the type of rounding or fillet that it's going to do. Right now it's going to invert that. So now if I click on that, it's an inverted round rather than a fillet. If I click again and I cycle through them, now I've got a flat or a chamfered fillet. I'm not sure if I'm using the right terms, but you get the idea. Again, if I Alt and click on this, I cycle through all my available roundings. One more, again, another one with this handy tool. If I am looking at this image and I want to launch into Photoshop, and I don't want to have to go into Photoshop and find the file and open it or drag it from your Finder window into Photoshop. You have it placed already here, but you now want to launch into Photoshop to edit something. Simply hold your Alt key and double click on that image, and it will automatically launch it into its parent program, which in this case is Photoshop, and there it is. That I'm sure a lot of you will use if you haven't already. It'll be very handy. That alone just keeps you from switching windows multiple times to find and load up the appropriate file. You might have to associate certain file types with the right program. For instance, in my case on my PC, this is a JPEG instead of a TIFF or Photoshop or PSD file, and a JPEG will launch just my Finder's preview, and it'll open that file in it because it isn't associated, the JPEG file type isn't associated with Photoshop as a default program. So you might have to go in and set defaults for file types that you want to launch into Photoshop. Just a little FYI. Okay guys, I think that's it for now. I think that, alone is a good little thing to work through and commit to muscle memory. Make sure that you're familiar with what it's doing. Otherwise you can kind of get lost and forget which combination of things did what, and then give up. I should mention that the direct selection tool also will, if I select on that object, you know that a direct selection will just select on the points or the path that you have clicked on directly. But if I hold the Alt key, much like the main selection tool, it will promote the selection to a full path selection and grab all the points so that you can move them all together. Again, that I think wraps it up, and I hope you have fun with this. Thanks guys.